Join us on Path of Faith, where we delve deep into the heart of spirituality, offering insights and inspiration to illuminate your path towards a deeper connection with God.
Imagine a mother who did her best to protect her children's honor, even camping for months alongside her bodies. We are talking about Rizpah, a concubine of King Saul of Israel. The story of Rizpah became known in the Bible precisely because of his dedication to protecting the bodies of his dead children. Rizpah was an Avida descendant of Ayah. This means that Rizpah was a foreign woman. The biblical text says that Rizpah was the mother of at least 2 children, Armani and Mephibosheth. And here it is important to emphasize that this child of Rizpah, named Mephibosheth, should not be confused with the Mephibosheth, who was the son of Jonathan. And in this video, you will know everything the Bible says about who Rizpah was, and will understand why its story was marked by the tragedy. To understand who was Rizpah, first you need to know a little about the environment in which she lived. Rizpah was linked to the court of Israel in a context of many intrigues, conspiracies, and power changes. After King Saul's death, his sketch son was declared king of the tribes of Israel, except for the tribe of Judah, who at the time already recognized David's leadership. Therefore, Idbums basically reigned over the northern tribes, and David reigned over the tribe of Judah. At this point, it is again important to pay attention not to confuse Sketch with Mephibosheth. Sketching was the legitimate son survivor of Saul, and Mephibosheth, as we said, was the name of one of the sons of Rizpah, the concubine of Saul. Therefore, Sketch half. Besides, of course, to be one of the names of the grandchildren of Saul, the son of Jonathan, who was crippled. So that was a period of much instability that involved a long war between the house of Saul and David's house. And in that context, a warrior named Abner, who was the commander of the army of Israel under the leadership of the House of Health, gained much power and prestige in Israel. However, at one point, Sketch accused Abner of having related with Rizpah, and that ended up generating fatal discord between them. But what was the problem of Abner and Rizpah to relate? The problem was that Rizpah had been the king's concubine. In concluding that Abner had been involved with Rizpah, he threw up practically accused Abner of betrayal. This did not happen because Sketching simply was jealous of Abner and Rizpah's alleged relationship, but it happened because he feared that this relationship was an Abner movement to occupy the throne of Israel. Do you remember that I just said that Abner was very powerful in Israel at that time? So that was the fear of Sketching. In ancient times, there are not few cases of ranking commanders who eventually became kings of nations after such conspiracies involving relationships with court women. And this disagreement between Abner and Isboset ended up helping King David. This is because Abner was offended by that situation and began to support David as king. And as a result, without Abner's protection, Isboset quickly fell, and David finally ascended as king of a unified kingdom in Israel. But time has passed, and the kingdom of Israel was punished for a large drought that lasted 3 years. This drought caused a hunger crisis that brought problems to David's reign, as recorded in Samuel's 2nd book, chapter 21. Then the king of Israel consulted the Lord about the reason that the drought was punishing the earth. And the Lord's answer to David was that drought was the result of Saul's betrayal against the Gibeonites. To understand this issue, we need to go back a little in history. When the Israelites were conquering Canaan, still in Joshua's days, a type of protection agreement was made with the Gibeonites. This means that Israel had promised to protect the Gibeonites, but Saul promoted a military offensive. He pursued and killed many Gibeonites. For those who do not know, the Gibeonites were not part of the children of Israel, but were the rest of the Amorites that Israel had sworn to spare. Therefore, David called the Gibeonites and asked them what could be done for that evil to be repaired. The Gibeonians, in turn, assured that they didn't want any gold or silver of Israel, let alone kill any Israelite, but they just wanted Saul's offspring to pay for that crime. Then the Gibeonians asked David to hand over 7 Saul descendants so that they could hang them. And David agreed with the proposal and promised to deliver 7 men from Saul's house to Gibeonites. And it was in the midst of this ethnic conflict that the drama of the history of Rizpah began. This is because among the men who were handed over by David to the Gibeonites were the 2 sons of Rizpah, Armon and Mephibosheth, as well as the 5 sons of Merab, daughter of Saul. As David had promised to protect the descent of Jonathan, his friend, he excluded Mephibosheth, who was the son of Jonathan and grandson of Saul, and handed over the 2 sons of Rizpah, who had been a concubine of Saul, to die along with the other grandchildren of Saul through his daughter Merab. And the biblical text says that the Gibeonites took these men and hanged them on the hill before the Lord. This happened at the principle of barley harvest, that is, in the period of the year equivalent to the month of April. So, in this tragic context, the Bible says that when the children of Rizpah were hanged, she took a rude cloth and made a shelter over a rock near where the bodies of those men were exposed. Rizpah settled guard before the bodies of her children and prevented them from being devoured by the birds of prey during the day and the field animals at night. At that time, it was considered a great dishonor when the bodies of the dead were transformed into food for the birds of the sky or the animals of the countryside. This means that exposing a person's dead body, preventing his burial, was a way of disgrace to the person. As we read in Deuteronomy 28:26, then Rizpah protected the bodies of his children by day and night until they could be buried. And that was not something fast. Rizpah has been a tireless protector of her children's bodies from the beginning of the harvest to the beginning of autumn rains in the northern hemisphere, a period of almost 6 months. David is likely to have left the bodies exposed throughout this time, hoping some evidence that the crime against the Gibeons had been repaired, and that the Lord's blessing was again over Israel. But King David learned of Rizpah's dedication to protecting the bodies of his children, and at this point the biblical text implies that David had the remains of those men collect, and, like the bones of Saul and Jonathan, they were recovered from the residence of Jabes of Led. The bones of those men were buried in a dignified way in the tomb from Saul's family. And it is interestingly, until that moment, the Bible says that the Lord had not changed his attitude toward the land of Israel. That is, hunger still persisted. But after the bodies are buried, the biblical writer records that God became favorable to the earth. This means that the crisis had come to an end.